kind of been through some of this, you're gonna know the gist of some of it. So, we're gonna get her fitted up with a prong collar to start jumping into some basic leash pressure stuff. So, let me grab one here, get her fitted up and start cruising.
It's like Scooby-Doo on the floor.
Right.
Really clumsy.
I know, you're very happy.
Ruthie, no.
Ruthie, you're gonna have so much fun.
It's like every day is the best day.
I wish I had that kind of enthusiasm.
That's why I work with dogs and we're being about that.
How'd she get along with the other one?
She's very obsessed with him. He's not as interested, but she's very much in love with him. She follows him around all the time, wants to do everything he's doing.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hang on.
Do you want me to switch the leash over into?
No, I'll do it in a second here. Alright, I'll take a leash from you. Oh. And you got that over there. Alright, so like I said, we're going to be introducing the leash here. So in a second here, what I'm going to do is switch over to the prong collar. We'll just start basic little prong collar introduction where I'll walk around the room. Anytime she gets distracted and pulls towards something, what I'll do is come to a stop, apply steady pressure in my direction, and just release that tension when she starts moving with me. So very straightforward process. We'll see how she responds to it as we go. And then we'll start adding some basic commands into it. It's interesting, a lot of those behavioral issues you'll see with them kind of organically start dissipating as we start the training process, as we start putting them in a little bit more of a compliant state of mind where they feel less likely to do those behaviors. For, you know, as innocent as they are, like obviously she's just a happy-go-lucky puppy. To some extent, they are kind of like a controlling behavior, right? When she jumps on you, she knows it typically gets some sort of reaction out of you, or if she mouths or barks or makes noise or things like that. So when we get them in a compliant state of mind, they don't feel as likely to do those things.
And then can I ask a question about like destructive behaviors at some point?
Yeah.
I don't want to
Ask, no, you're ask
Can I
away.
ask now? Okay. So yeah, we've been doing a lot of destructive things. This past week alone, 2 TV remotes and 3 shoes.
Peace.
Yeah, it's been really hard. And she does it so quick too. Like
Yeah.
she's sleeping, I go to take a shower, I come down, the shoe's gone. And it's just, I don't understand.
Is it consistently happening when you're not like visually there to see it?
Yeah. Well, this is bad. You're probably gonna be mad at me for this, but she gets very upset if I leave her and it's not Gus downstairs, the other
Sure.
dog.
Yeah.
If Gus is down there, she's okay, but if we both are upstairs, she's like screaming, like literally screaming, and then like that's when stupid things happen. So I try to leave her with Gus, but then today, even with Gus, she still decided to have a shoe.
Do you use a crate with her?
She does go in the crate, but she'll shred what's ever in that crate. Is that okay then?
She doesn't need anything in the crate. But yeah, so the first step to stopping any sort of behavioral issues like that, like destructive tendencies, is managing it and making sure the dog's not rehearsing doing it, right? So right now, you've essentially started to develop a habit of when you're not present, she finds something to occupy herself with, right?
Yeah.
So immediately starting like now, you need to essentially remove that from being something that she could even do. So if you're not able to supervise her, even if you're going to the bathroom for a minute, right, or you're going to take a shower or something, you need to either take her with you or you need to stick her in a crate, right? From there, once we get a little bit further in the training process, what we can do is we can kind of bait it a little bit so that we can actually address it. So you can run drills where you get sassy now. Come on. She's like, I'm over this. So you can start kind of baiting drills where you leave something out that she might be interested in getting, go somewhere where you think that she'd be likely to realize you're not present, and just wait for her to do it so that you can correct for it. And that's how we ultimately start, stopping those types of things.
Can I cause her to be like anxious though? Like I don't know if I did that.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily just an anxious thing, right? Like she's just a wild dog that's kind of starting to learn that she can get her way by rehearsing some of these behaviors, Like the anxiety of if she's mad that she's not with Gus or something, right? She's just probably realizing that when she makes enough of a stink like that, that you'll move her or give in or something like that, right? As opposed to us communicating to her, we're not going to alter the situation, we're not going to go put you in there, but you do need to chill out, right? And that just comes from the ability to start correcting for some of those behaviors. Which, you know, this isn't a your fault thing, we just don't have the communication established yet in order to do that. Alright, so in a minute here, what we're going to do is we're going to start adding some sits into this. Same concept, we're not using any verbal command or anything, we're just going to use the leash to do so. Come to a stop, apply a little bit of pressure up on that leash. Once her butt hits the ground, almost there. Relieve that pressure. Okay. And tell her okay, just letting her know that she no longer has to be in that position. We're just teaching the concepts of pressure and release with this. So applying pressure, teaching her that when she does something specific, in this case the sit. You're almost there.
Ruthie said.
There we go, that relieves that tension. Okay. And no verbal commands for this. The point of this is her understanding the leash as its own, like, independent form of communication. There we go, it's a little bit quicker that time. Okay. Okay. What we're going to do next, we're going to start shaping the bed here. So I'm just going to walk her up to it. I'm going to use this leash to help her get all 4 paws up onto this bed. Good. Okay. And get the freebies. Catch the snacks. Okay. 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 Typically all this leash biting and stuff that we see kind of comes in waves. You know, they do pretty good and they kind of get over it, and they do pretty good, they get over it. Okay, so I try to not feed into it too much. I'm just gonna kind of keep working her through it and show her
Do
again.
you say no or you just ignore it?
Just ignore it for now, unless it gets really extreme and we need to give a correction for it. But right now, I'm just trying to show her that when she starts doing that, it doesn't stop anything that we're doing, you know? We're essentially removing the reinforcement for her to do it in the first place, seeing how much of the behavior goes away from that. From there, if we need to, we can add in corrections to stop the rest of it. Okay. She doesn't seem fairly committed with it though, so obviously it's not that big of a deal right now. Good. Okay. Keep more on there. And the point of all of this is not to like proof these commands or make them super real world reliable or anything. We're just shaping the muscle memory of the things that we're going to be working on with her. Okay? And that's why we're not using verbal commands either, because right now if I were to start saying bed, right, well, if I don't know for certain that I can get her into that position with a leash, if I give the command, what do I do if she doesn't do it, you know? So we have to make sure we have it established first, where I know that I can get her onto the position. Good. Okay. So that I can start layering in the verbal command with that behavior. Come on. Good. Okay. So now what we're doing is we're just shaping some doorways here. So obviously this is a point of a lot of arousal with dogs. So what we're doing is we're just kind of shaping the healing and the sits we just worked on. So I'm walking up to the door, opening it up, using that leash to get her into the sit, obviously. Once she's in that sit, I usually just let him sit there for a minute, kind of chill out, get used to like, you know, not rehearsing that impulse of just charging through it. If she gets up, use that leash again to get her back in. And when she's stable, okay, okay, walk her through, and then do the same thing coming back in. Same deal. Hit the door. Okay, watch out. Got it. You do that a couple times. A little bit easier that time. Okay. Okay. Prong collar, anything like that, right? They're designed for dogs, right? They're not going to make something that's going to injure your dog in like any type of situation like that.
You think
right?
she's smart enough to stop?
Well, getting there. So, second thing to keep in mind, though this tool looks really scary, right? It's prongs and things poking and stuff like that. The actual links themselves are totally dull, right? So I could take this thing and scrape it all over myself, and it's not gonna cut my skin, it's not gonna break my skin or anything like that, right? And they make it that way because it's for dogs, right? The point of this is not to have it stab into their neck. The point of this is when you put it on, as they pull on it, obviously this is not fitted for my wrist, right? But as they pull on it, the links just get closer together, like this, right?
So it's kind of like pinching, right?
And
Versus
it
like stabbing.
pinches as opposed to stabs, exactly,
What about that?
right?
Okay.
So it's just this like annoying little pinching response they're getting on their neck. And keep in mind, any little whimpers or vocalization that we're getting out of her on this, one, it's not consistent, right? Two, it's coming in places where she's really protesting it, so that vocalization is coming from a place of frustration as opposed to from a pain or discomfort or anything like that,
Okay.
right? Now, back to your original point, if she were to lunge on the leash, right? One of two things would happen, right? One, yeah, she would feel it, she'd be like, oh, that's uncomfortable, I should stop doing this, right? Or two, depending on how much she actually cares about this thing, some dogs, honestly, because this truly is so like non-aversive to them, some dogs will like pull into it and just be like, I don't care, and they just keep pulling into it. And again, it doesn't cause any pain or anything. They're just like, I don't really care about this. I'm gonna keep doing this. And that's why I said the point of the prong collar is not to proof these behaviors and get your dog to stop lunging on the walk and this and that. The point of it is to be able, in a controlled environment, shape these positions of what we'll ultimately be teaching, so that we can use the e-collar for that later on to proof those things like you've done with Gus.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's not hurting her as much as I
No,
think
no,
that
no, no.
I'm
Nope.
imagining.
Yeah, I mean, if you really get into it, like the whole reason why they invented these things is because they're supposed to simulate like the mother's bite, right? So it's supposed to be like this like kind of weird pinching sensation on their skin. So
All right, so walk in a circle.
yeah, so once you get her on your left hand side here, shorten your leash a little bit. And I just want you to start walking around and just kind of shape having her walk with you where you want her to be. You're a tiny bit more slack on that leash. There you go. And with this, with our walking, I always say it's much less about like jerking them around all over the place, and it's much more about our motion doing the work. So I try to keep my arms fairly loose. I try to walk, and if she resists or tries to go off to the side or anything, I kind of just keep walking more than actually pull them back to me, and that motion will get her focusing back in on you.
So keep walking or pull
Keep
her
on
over?
walking. You can kind of pull her over if you need to, if she really is getting out of position. But I'm just trying to make sure that you don't wind up falling into the trap of really pulling your arm all over the place. If you need to move her back, that's fine. Move her back and then go loose right away again with it. Perfect.
Okay.
Don't worry about repeating any commands or anything here. I want pretty much all of your communication to be done with just the leash.
Don't talk, got it.
You're not a stranger to that one.
I know.
Freebie, get it. Get it right here. Get it right here. Is there any more? Any more to clean up? Okay, so all that looked great. Your timing looked pretty good with it. So last thing here is now that we know we can get her into these positions, we're gonna start adding some rewards into it. I try to avoid, at least with my one-on-one clients, because we move a little bit quicker through some of the steps, I try to avoid adding the rewards in until I can confirm that the dog can do it, just to make sure that I'm not like driving the dog into it, like teaching them that only if this thing is out they do it, right? So now that we've confirmed we can get her into all these positions, we'll start reinforcing them. So same deal here, we'll start with our sits. All I'm gonna do is pick my spot, apply my pressure, release it, good. Then if I want to reward her, I'll just tell her good and give her a treat for that.
Oh, question.
Yeah.
She is like Cookie Monster. When you give her a treat, she's like, how do I do that more gently?
Two things, right? So one, just teaching impulse control of like when we reward, so my good marker means she has to maintain that position while she's getting the treat, right? So if I were to go like this and she were to pop up out of that position to get it, I would correct her, use the leash to guide her back into it. So that will start slowing her down a little bit with it. Two is how you deliver the food. Right? A lot of people try to give treats like this. And of course, if I give it like this, she's gonna chomp my
They
fingers
were
off.
saying go like this, but even then she's still like,
No. So the problem is even like this, your fingers are still coming in first.
yeah.
Technically, if you're gonna do that, you want the treat in the middle of your hand like this, like you would feed a horse, right? That way, fingers aren't there, right? I can just let her have it.
Was she being gentle when she took it from you or no?
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's subjective, right? Because like my Malinois, like you basically have to throw him treats because he'll literally take your hand off if you feed it the wrong way to him. But like, I don't want to discourage that a ton either because like, we want drive out of these dogs, right? But if you feed them properly, like technically the proper way to give a treat is doing it like that, right? Where that's gentle. She's basically just licking it out of my hand, right? But when you teach them to take it like this, you're teaching them to chomp it. You know, so you actually can unintentionally make it worse doing it that way. So just like that. But like I said, in addition to that, this of making sure she realizes she needs to maintain the position will help get her focused in and not as like, oh my god, I need to just like leap for this treat. So okay, so same concept as what we were just doing. We're just adding that reward into it. So coming to a stop, getting her in a position, good. Now you're good. Rewarding her for it. And then making sure after that reward she's still stable, right? Okay, she needs to maintain position until she hears that okay release. Good. Okay. Good. It's not going to be this easy at first, right? Like you know that obviously, right? Keep in mind that this should only be in low distracting environments for right now, right? So don't
walk her home.
No, you could use the prong still for it, but what I need is our expectation of her being really compliant, like she was upstairs, should only be in like lower distracting environments, right? Outside you'll see an improvement on your walks, but if she has a history of trying to get this, trying to get that, she'll probably still try to do this to some extent, right? All of the leash pressure stuff we worked upstairs. So you'll work your heeling, you'll work your beds, your sits, and your doorways, and then just load a structured walking outside with her as well. If you can kind of get cruising on those things for right now, and then in addition to that, ensure that between now and our next session, she does not chew any more of your shit. Great. You gotta grade her if you don't have your eyes on her. That's your temporary solution. Long-term solution, we will correct for it, right? But right now, you need to just make sure she's not rehearsing it. No rehearsing. What's up, man? What do you think? Questions? I think she looks great. Keep it up.
He's just finishing up.